Hi everyone, this is Cynthia Hartley. I lead Ventura Audubon's shorebird recovery program at Ormond Beach, and I have gone through quite a lot of trail camera videos, which we started using on nests about 6 or 7 years ago. Initially, just to look and see what predators were approaching nests and taking eggs, and also to try to time the hatch of nests. But in the process, we have really discovered a lot of really cool things about snowy plovers. So we're going to look at all of that together tonight. So first off, I have to acknowledge my team who helps me, and without which I would not be able to do any of the work that I do out at Ormond with our nest monitoring. This is my lieutenant team, Rachel Ameche, Alicia Smith, Joan Tharp, and Kat Whitehouse. All of you guys are amazing and are so integral to everything we do out there.
And our team is growing. Actually, Allison is in this picture. Allison is here tonight. She's a professor at Cal State Channel Islands. We're partnering with her. And Max Morales is in this picture. She's our intern, our CI intern this spring. So all of this team, we're doing Tideline survey, we're doing nest surveys together pretty much every Saturday that we can get out there. And I think Alexis, yes, Alexis is in here too. She's one of our new interns. So thank you, team. The first thing I want to talk about are predator exposures, and that's just because it's something that shows up a lot in the videos. And to me, it's no big deal. I know what it is, but I can imagine it's a little interesting if you don't know what the structure is that these birds are sitting in. It's essentially a cage that we put over a nest. And the reason we use it is because we have problems with crow and raven predation. And we don't like to use them because it causes a lot of other problems. It actually kind of signals to other predators that there's a nest here on the beach. But in years when we have really bad raven and crow predation, it's the only thing that allows these nests to make it. So it's a real decision point for us. And so some of the nests, you're going to see these birds sitting in this kind of grid structure. And you will see that very soon. This is a predator exposure. This is Kat installing one. It's 3 feet by 3 feet, so it's quite big. We did try a model that was smaller. We were thinking if we went to 2 by 2, maybe it would be harder for predators to see. It turned out not to be the case, and we'll see a video about that in a little bit. And here's our first video. I am going to caveat this that, okay, it looks like it's loading pretty quick. We are looking at a lot of videos tonight. I'm hoping that our download speed is going to work, and I think it will. So here's a raven predating a nest, and it's going to go right into another nest that has a predator exposure on it. He knows there's a nest in there. I'll just run that again and make some comment on this. These birds fly overhead and they actually cue in on snowy plovers running away from their nests. And they're really good at finding nests. And once they cue into that, they will fly down the beach and they'll hit every single plover nest down the beach. Our worst year, we lost 36 out of 37 plover nests. So when they really get going, we really have a bad year, they can wipe out the whole nesting season, which is why we do use these predator exposures when we have to. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, that's a raven. Sorry, the mouse is doing mousy things to me here. Most of what we have are ravens. We do have some crows, but ravens are by far, on Ormond Beach, the worst predator we have. Okay, so let's talk about trail cameras. I actually have a couple up here. I get really small, inexpensive ones. You can go anywhere from $30 to probably, thousands and thousands of dollars. theft is an issue on Ormond Beach. So I always go for the kind of the inexpensive ones. They actually do a good job. They're motion activated. So I turn them on and they will wait for something to move in front of the camera. I can have them set to photo or video. I like videos. So I'll take a 10-second video and then there's a cool down period and it'll re-trigger and I'll get another 10-second video. And if I have a bird that happens to decide to stand in front of the camera and groom itself, I have about 1,000 videos of a bird grooming itself. I have also, or piece of vegetation waving around in front of the camera. They trigger at night. They flash some infrared, so they're invisible. They're called no glow. So it doesn't alert predators or the bird that we're taking its picture in the middle of the night. The only problem is it's a black and white. So it's not really a great video, but we do, really we're just there to find out what's approaching nests in the middle of the night. And then SD cards we have to change every week. We are very old school. We don't do cell service. I don't have pictures sent to my phone. We actually have to physically go out there, take the card, take it home, and review it. But they're cheap cameras. And sorry, that's a little hard to see. As I said, theft is a problem. We usually lose anywhere from 2 to 5 cameras a year. They're just stolen off of nests. So I do this thing, I call it sand camo. It's just, it's like an art spray. So I spray it to look like the sand. I also write all over them in indelible ink that, Ventura Audubon, our email address, anything that I hope will clue in like a pawn dealer or someone who might pick this thing up. And hopefully, we have had one returned. We had one that was picked up and it was turned into the Port Hueneme Police Department. When they called me up and I went out and got it. It was really cool. Here's Kat installing one of our cameras. And this is what it looks like. This camera was actually watching a nest that was right on the tide line. You can kind of see our fences in the back. And here's a close-up of it, sand camo. And I've also gone as far as pounding a short T-post into the sand and then locking it to a cable that's hooked onto the cable or the post. They still steal them. And this is what a camera looks like on a nest. This one's doesn't have the sand camo on it, but you can see over on the right, the little cage. And then the camera we put pretty far away. We don't want it to be right on top of the nest. We don't want to clue in predators or humans. If someone might take that camera, that's fine, but I don't want them to clue in that there's a nest there. Okay, so snowy plovers do really, really cool things. They love to sit on the cameras. They're not afraid of the cameras. They actually think they're a pretty great perch. I'll play that one more time. They do this a lot. And some birds, that's what they do all day, is they come out, they stand in front of the camera, and then they jump on top of it. Probably saw its reflection or something. And here's the best. It took me a while to figure out what this was. I'm like, what is this shape on top of the camera? And some ravens have actually knocked this camera over. And apparently the plover decided that was a great place to sit. Never thought you'd see that angle on a plover. We get this a lot, this behavior. I think that's a cricket. You can actually see it working down its crop. We've caught them eating quite a few crickets. Oops, didn't mean to replay that. Snowy plovers will eat any bug it can get down its craw. This is a cheat. This is not a trail camera. This is video that Alicia took. A few years ago, we had I guess a bloom. I don't know if that's what you call it, but painted ladies. Painted ladies. They were all over the place. They were on the beach. Snowy plovers eat painted ladies. And this next one I had to put in there just to be fair. Also not trail camera, also an Alicia picture. This is one of my favorite all-time Alicia pictures. They eat worms too. So they're very, when it comes to bugs, they're very equal opportunity. I read a paper once where someone actually went and collected snowy plover poop, took it back to the lab. I'm sure it was grad students who had to do this. And they floated it and they actually identified bones and skeletal parts. And if it's an insect, they're going to eat it. Okay, so let's see. Let me make sure I'm going the right way. Sorry, somehow I ended up in the wrong end of that one. All right, we're going to talk about nesting plovers. So this is what a snowy plover nest looks like, 3 eggs, and they lay them right on the sand. In this case, there's a little gravel bed. They like to, in fact, we found a nest last Saturday in this area. One thing they do is they line their nests or their scrape with bits of shell, and you can see that there's some of that here. They do tend to use what's in their environment, so there's also a lot of rocks that it looks like they've collected. And what I had always read is that snowy plovers and the males and females have this kind of bonding thing they do where when they exchange nesting duties, one will bring in a shell. And this, I don't know if this is true. I kind of think of this as very romanticized. One brings in a shell and offers it, to the nest, and then they exchange duties. Since then, based on our cameras, we see other behaviors, which I'll show in a second. One thing that I didn't realize, yes, this is 2 snowy plovers copulating. Sometimes we don't know which is the male and which is the female until we see this. It's not something we see a lot. You have to be far away. But the thing that I didn't realize is that they will copulate every time they lay an egg. So we find they usually lay 3 eggs. When we find a nest with 1 egg, we put a camera on it. We will still see them copulating next to the nest. So unless it's the female trying to get some extra genetics going, I think every time they lay an egg, they have to copulate again. It takes them 3 days. They lay 1 egg a day, pretty much. The famous egg shimmy. I was just telling someone before this that my interns used to, it was a big deal for them to, each one would have their rendition of the egg shimmy. So note what she's doing, and this is a female. She's actually sitting there and she's moving shells as she's sitting on her nest. And the other thing we've noticed with our trail cameras, sometimes they get up off their nest and they walk around and they're constantly rearranging their environment. And so I think this bit of piling shells up underneath their eggs, it's just a constant housekeeping that they are always, it's just like a conveyor belt of shells and rearranging these little bits of gravel around their nest. So the other thing, when we hear snowy plovers, when we're doing nest monitoring, we normally only hear alarm calls. And I was never aware just how rich their communication is until we started putting cameras on them, and they're actually doing their natural behaviors without a human alarming them. So this is the best when a nest is hatching. I'll play that again. You can also see how they move right in and out of that predator exposure without problem. So how many of you actually saw that chick the first time? Yeah, you've probably seen this before. So there's a chick right here. So it takes them 3 days to lay all of their eggs. And once they've laid the last egg, that's when they actually start brooding the eggs. So what that does is it kind of cues up the timing so that they're going to hatch more or less within a day of each other. It's a combined effort. The male and the female, usually they divide up brooding duties. So you've got the male brooding all night, and then the female will come in and she will brood all day. And those for 4 weeks, they switch like that. They never really, I mean, sometimes it looks like they kind of fight. It's like they see one coming in and you think, oh my God, we're gonna have a snowy plover fight. And they kind of go at it and then they switch. Who knows what goes through their little heads. But at the end, when the chicks are hatching, then they combine forces. And usually the female sticks with the egg that's hatching, and the chick that has hatched first goes with the male. So the male kind of keeps track of him and makes sure he doesn't get in trouble. Meanwhile, the female stays with the ones that are coming. And eventually the male will go off with all of the chicks. The female leaves and she'll make her own new nest or rest for a while. This is one of the better videos we caught of a male brooding his 3 chicks. Unfortunately, it's a nighttime shot. They can fit all 3 of them underneath there, and you wouldn't even see them. And this last one, that's just kind of a nice shot of a chick. And then it shows him about 3 days later, he runs back the other direction, a little bit less wobbly. There it goes. So once they hatch, they head to the tide line because that's where they're going to find forage. So they go out to where there's rack. And we've actually mapped this. Whenever we see a chick, we drop a pin and we sweep the beach once a week. So each week we capture all the chicks that are out there. And then we do that each week of nesting season. So these are all of the chicks that we documented last year. Now it's not that many chicks that represents for each week. So we're actually can see the progression where we see a lot younger chicks in the beginning. And then as they age, they become fewer and fewer. But what this shows us is that the chicks tend to gravitate outside of the fences. So these black lines are the habitat fences that are there to keep people from walking through the nesting areas. And the problem is the chicks, they have to go out to the tide line. So that's where we have the conflicts with people and dogs. And that's where we're doing a lot of our education. So this is fun. We've caught a lot of other kinds of animals. This is one of my favorite videos that we've ever captured. Play that one more time. It's pretty quick. Yeah, mockingbirds eat petals. So we did capture a mockingbird and a snowy plover disagreeing. Here we see the display, snowy plover display. So that last bit I slowed down. So the nest was right there, and that mockingbird had come through and it was foraging. I don't think it was going for after the plover. I've never seen that I know of a mockingbird predate a plover egg. But this plover was not taking any chances, was very unhappy with that mockingbird. There's another bird that flies across the back. I think that's also a mockingbird, so that's probably a pair. We have a lot of whimbrels this time of year. We have huge flocks that actually go through the dunes. I think they're looking for bugs. They do not seem to be interested in snowy plovers, but they do encounter each other. before I play this, there's a snowy plover on a nest right here, right underneath this. And you can see this whimbrel is kind of like not sure about this plover. I mean, the size difference must be tenfold. And here's an encounter that didn't go so well. They, you know, when their hormones are up and they're defending their nest, they don't care about size. The other thing we've seen that I didn't know happened is they actually fight at nests. So there will be an established pair, one bird on the nest, another one kind of hanging out. We've seen a number of males come through. I don't know why, but we've caught quite a few nest fights. Kind of hard to tell because the letters are on top of this bird, but you can kind of see a bird right in here on the nest, kind of moving its head. I'm pretty sure that's the female. I can't quite see its head enough, but I'm going to say that's a female. This was a male that had came in and challenged this other bird that was at the nest. I think this other bird was a female. I think this bird here is a female. I don't know why she would do this. And there's the male. Sorry, on my computer at home, the letters didn't cover up this fight. And horned larks. I actually get really frustrated this time of year because I see more horned larks than I see anything. And other than snowy plovers, we probably captured horned larks as much. Well, I won't say as much. This time of year, it seems like it's as much. But they are right there. They nest in the same habitat. I thought this was a really cute video. So that you can see the plover sitting on the nest, just kind of watching. Looking for bugs, I would assume. So this is a horned lark nest that we found. We don't look for horned lark nests, but this one is in a beach burr. They build a little basket, and I don't know for sure, but I'm guessing their eggs probably take a couple weeks to hatch. Horned lark chicks are altricial, so they're when they hatch, they're very undeveloped and naked and dependent on their adults, where snowy plovers are precocial. So they hatch out like little chickens and they're ready to run, but it takes them a lot longer. We get these gangs of larks when these young juvenile, like kind of dumb larks. And here's a big gang running around the snowy plover nest. They're just really dopey. I have only ever one time seen a snowy plover go after a lark, and that's this next video. Oh, no, sorry. I'm sorry. One more cute one of a lark, and I promise that's the last one. Yeah, they're pretty dopey. Very cute. All right. This is the only time I've ever seen a snowy plover attack a lark. That's a bird. We'll look at her a little bit later. I call her Athena because she is the goddess of war. Yeah. So plovers also nest right amongst least terns on Ormond Beach. On the north end, we have a tern colony. They cohabitate. If you read articles about this, it's called a protective umbrella because terns are so aggressive and they go after predators. They mob predators. It's felt that plovers kind of know this and they take advantage of it and use that to protect their own nests by nesting close to this really aggressive species. But they don't like each other all the time. And I've seen a lot of fights between plovers and terns, and usually the aggression seems to come from plovers, honestly. And you can see where his nest is. Right there. I'll play that one more time. This is part of a longer video. This tern's mate was trying to feed it. So the tern could care less about the plover. You can hear the other terns. Okay, I think that's it for neighbor relations. Sorry. Okay, so we're going to talk about predators. This is a gang of ravens. One year we had a pair of ravens had chicks, which they fledged out, and they were these juvenile, real obnoxious, like adolescents. And they went around the beach in this big gang, and the parents taught their offspring to hunt plover nests. And we had to put cages on everything. And it caused a lot of other problems, but you'll see in a minute why these guys are so awful. So this was part of that juvenile gang. When a plover predates a nest, this is usually what we see. These are a lot of raven prints right around the nest, and then there's a lot of disturbance. The scrape is right up here where the eggs were. And before trail cameras, this would be the only evidence we had. That's a plover egg that was actually taken off of the nest, and generally they'll go to the nest, they'll eat the first egg and they'll mash it up and make a big mess. Maybe they'll eat the other one, but the third egg they'll fly off with and they'll eat it somewhere else. And this is what we find. You can see there's kind of yolk down here in the sand. Classic raven, they make a big mess. Yeah, so this is this obnoxious group of juveniles. This is one of the smaller predator exclosures. This is a 2-foot cube instead of a 3-foot cube, and they actually learned how to get in. That one's pecking the camera. I'll play that again. Eggs probably felt like that big. They're pretty big. Crows, we also have crows. This is a big gang that came through, and you can see that a plover nest would not stand a chance. There was a nest in that cage that actually survived. It just happened that my camera caught this group of crows coming through one day, and they just fortunately didn't come back. Okay, so this one goes pretty quick. I had to slow it down. This happened really fast. One morning we were out, we were checking nests, and we had put a cage on a nest, and we found the cage off the nest. I thought that a human had come through and was moving my exclosures, which happens. So I left the exclosure off of the nest, and then we took the SD card home, and this is what we found had happened. That was a very lucky plover. I'll play that one more time. Yeah, these cages don't, if great horned owls are targeting plovers, they pretty much tell us not to to use them. And if I know that's happening, you know, because you can see in the beginning, the plover saw the owl coming. I'll play that again. And he's trying to get out, but it's panicking because it's underneath this cage. That's one of the problems with these predator exposures. When you have a predator like this, another one that can do a lot of damage are coyotes. Because if a coyote were to approach a bird sitting in a cage and the bird starts to panic, I've seen this, it can't get out because it's just fluttering. And it either exhausts itself or, you know, like a coyote can get inside. So this is where these structures are not good. Ah, yes. Everybody tells me how much they love shrikes. I used to like shrikes, but they're such an amazing predator. I'm not even going to show you guys the video we have because it's pretty scarring. This is a still from one of my videos. That's a shrike that has found this nest and it's got a chick in its mouth, a plover chick. And on the video, the adult plovers, they're in the background doing a broken wing display as hard as it can just to try to attract this shrike away from its chick. But it got all of the chicks. And at this point, we just thought that the shrikes we figured they were probably homing in on the nests because of the cages, because they had learned to see these exclosures. And we thought that they were just targeting the chicks. But, and this is also a still from a video that I'm not going to show you. They were dropping down into they go right through the bars and they were dropping right onto the nests and they were attacking the adults. And we did lose a couple adults. This was the same summer I had that gang of ravens that was eating every nest that they could find. This was towards the end of the summer. The other thing that happened this year, usually we get loggerhead shrikes come through about June, July, kind of towards the end of nesting season. So even if they do start to target plovers on nests, it takes them a while to figure it out. And by the time they figure it out, nesting season is over. But these shrikes showed up in May. So that's kind of a situation where if there's a lot of change in patterns and nesting patterns and seasonality in these different birds, this could be a problem if we start having shrikes coming through in May targeting snowy plovers. Last year, this wasn't an issue. And if we don't have ravens and we don't have to use these cages, we're okay. I don't have a really good video of a skunk attacking a nest, but we have lost a couple of nests to skunks. These cages will not slow them down at all. They just dig right under. Unfortunately, they're black animals in black and white images at the night. So this is the best skunk I could find. Once skunk figure out nests, it's also really difficult. Of course, coyotes. Coyotes take my cameras. And I could not for the life of me find the video I had. I know I had, you could see a coyote coming up to the camera and sniffing it. And then you could hear this crunching. And then you could hear this kind of slurping or something. And it ran off with the camera. And we found it. We haven't had a lot of problems with coyotes going for plover nests. We're right next to Point Magoo. We have a big tern colony down there. And they will go from nest to nest to nest to nest, and they will eat all of the tern nests over there. Okay, so that's it for predators. So this is sensitive and this is upsetting, but it is part of what we deal with out there. This is a side-by-side picture. This is an area, it's in the back of the North Habitat. It's kind of, it's between Port Hueneme and the power plant. It's backs the Nature Conservancy property. And there's this area where bikes or motorcycles and vehicles like to come through. And you can see the picture on the left is after we had done a repair. we do our nest surveys. Every week we check this area because it's often been vandalized, and every week we fix it. And so this was after one of the times we fixed. And then the picture on the right is, it was actually a 4th of July a couple of years ago. A truck just smashed through the back fence. And then this happened last year. That fence is right here, up here at the top. And last year they actually didn't come through that area. They found another way in, and it wasn't a truck, it was motorcycles. So they did considerable damage to the nesting area. Fortunately, this happened kind of towards the end of August, so we didn't have any active nests on the ground. But if it were to happen in the middle of nesting season, we would have lost a lot of nests. Okay. I thought I outed this bird already. So this is we're gonna see a motorcycle in here, but we're gonna see a bird go up to, I'm not kidding you, a rock, and it brooded the rock. We called it the rock nest. Unfortunately, I don't think we can quite see that from here, but it's this. He's gonna jump on the camera. Here's the bird on his rock. So had that been a nest, I mean, it probably wouldn't have run over it. I came back. So this bird, I knew this bird was brooding a rock, and I was trying to figure out what to do about this. And I had finally decided I'm just going to take his rock away. I mean, this is just not good for him to be trying to hatch a chick out of a rock. So I finally decided to do it. I gave him like 3 days. And I went back to take the rock away, but the area had been completely trashed. The bird was gone. My camera actually was gone. And that was the end of that. But I did turn this video over to the police. They were unable to identify the bike rider, because you can actually, you know, I think I got a still like of about that. But the guy has a full helmet on. So you couldn't point to somebody and say, this is the guy. So this is just an ongoing problem. Ormond's remote, and there's only 2 access points 2 miles apart. And there's a lot of illegal access in the middle, and there's just not enough enforcement. There's not enough people out there to see what's going on. So this sort of thing happens. Oh, yes. We've encountered this guy a lot, and he must see my cameras, because last spring, he walked by them all the time. So the circle is a nest that doesn't have a cage on it. And there's the bird doing the display. He's looking for sea glass. Let's see if I can move this. I put this in chronological order. I'll play that one more time. If you look across the bottom, you can see the date. There. He's a guy that goes fishing out there, and then he comes inside past the fences. As far as I know, he hasn't stepped on a nest yet. We have talked to him a few times. Okay, I'm downloading this from YouTube because it's a little longer. This nest, you can see there's a fence back here. The nest is right here in this little dune, and it's right on the edge of this habitat area. So it's a place where people are really tempted to come through. And the other story with this nest is there were some winds, and the eggs actually rolled off of this dune, and they rolled all the way down and ended up down kind of over here. And the bird actually followed the eggs and moved with them and continued to brood these eggs, even though they were so far away. Let's play this video. And all of these clips are in sequential or in time order. Hmm. Yeah. This guy, every Thursday and Sunday, about the same time, he would jog past our cameras. I guess he didn't like to jog on the beach. He wanted to jog inside. This isn't that area where the ATVs come through.
All of this for the birds, and there's not a single bird.
It's like somebody paid him to say that. All right, finally, I think this is the last one. I pissed everybody off enough. This is that same gate area. The Nature Conservancy property is a place where people like to walk their dogs. It is no trespassing. You're not supposed to be in there, but it's very attractive to people who want to, get out and walk their dogs, and then they come through to the beach. I think this is hilarious because the kid, whose face I've blurred, is throwing a fit because he can't get down to the beach. Just watch his arms. I think Dad did the right thing. No, they turned around. So that's just sort of a smattering of the sorts of things that we encounter every week. I do want to talk about some of the natural things that happen. This is a blowout. There's an area of all along Ormond Beach. There's a lot of really big dunes that protect the coast, but there are a couple places where the tide does get through, and this is one. This happened last July. Yeah, here's this dune ridge. It's these dunes that have built up as the wind comes in off the beach and it picks up the sand. It encounters all of these dunes and it drops more sand. And so these dunes are getting bigger and bigger. And what's cool about this is it's really going to protect this beach against sea level increase. Now, I'm not an expert on this. I don't know how much, but from what I've seen, it's really going to keep this beach stable. It was a little difficult to actually capture exactly what happened, but this is the nest that got washed out in this tide event last July. Basically, my camera got washed out, and it's kind of hard to see what happened, but here's the nest. It happened in the middle of the night. These cameras are waterproof. That's how I found it. Still running. So this is the location of the nest. This was nest 51. I actually traced the water that came in. So it washed in through this really narrow place called a blowout, and it went all the way to the back, and it ran along the back for a ways. And the blue dots are snowy plover nests that hatched, but that's one of the good things about snowy plovers. Their nesting season is so long. It's not like there's a big colony that's there for like 3 weeks, and if something like this happens, the whole thing gets wiped out. They have all season to kind of spread out their timing. So we only lost one snowy plover nest last year. And here's my wind. Wind is the other thing. People ask me, what do snowy plovers do in the wind? And they don't like it, but they are evolved to deal with that kind of environment, and they actually do really well. The winds in this was a couple years ago. Yeah, it got up to almost 40-mile-per-hour gusts. This bird's going to go in. It's going to sit on the nest. I've circled the nest. Watch this dune in front. You're going to see it change. So that nest got hammered for a full day. And it hatched. So we just had wins. We found our first couple nests of the season 3 weeks ago. All the wins we've been having this year so far, all the nests made it. Okay, so this is the last bit. Banded snowy plovers. What I've done here is I've made a nest. Here's Ormond Beach in white. All of these places are birds have come to us that were banded at these beaches. We have one as far away as Oregon. The yellow are the ones that we've had nesting on Ormond Beach in the last year or two. The blue ones, not so recently. So I'm going to talk about the yellow, the ones highlighted in yellow. This is Athena, the goddess of war. She comes from Vandenberg, fledged in 2019. She nested on our beach. We didn't see her last year, but we saw her the year before. Her band combo, you can kind of see it. This is a tan band over silver, and this is orange over white. And what's really noticeable about her, and you can kind of tell, she's got this laceration on her head, and she had it the whole time that we saw her. The other thing, it's a female, and females breed during the day. So we usually pick those up on our cameras. The males, since they're only there at night, we tend not to get as good footage of them because they only show up when the chicks are hatching. So here's a little video of what she went through. There's that laceration on her face. Oh yeah, she's the one that didn't like the goddess of war. It happens a lot. We get gulls with broken wings. We put up with wind too. So we never saw the chicks because it hatched right in the middle of one of these winds. We don't know if they survived, but she showed up 3 weeks later, about half a mile up the beach on another nest, banded and with this laceration on her face. So she's unmistakable. I put this little sport camera on her just to get a better look at her. So this was in a really bad location. I could put this sport camera on her to catch a little video, but I wouldn't leave it on her. I put one of my cheap cameras that doesn't get great video, but we did get this one shot of her chick when it hatched. This is probably the male actually with the chick, but it's the same nest. So she hatched 2 nests out that spring and all that wind. I call our Coos Bay bird Sunny because he has yellow bands, and we love this bird. We've seen him since 2021. We know that he's had at least 5 nests, about 2 a year on Ormond Beach. We've seen him this year already. So it looks like he's kind of in his normal place. He did lose one of his nests to a skunk. This is the best picture. Joan took this picture because it's a male. We never really got pictures of him with his chick, but we have seen him with chicks, and he's a great dad. This is Sargent. He's from Camp Pendleton. Orange, yellow, yellow. I think he used to be orange, lime, yellow, yellow, because we had an orange, lime, yellow, yellow a few years ago, and they tell me they think he lost his lime band. We know he's had at least 4 deaths, 2 a year. We saw him a few days ago on Saturday. I think Joan was the one who saw him, and he picks fights constantly with Sunny. So bad that last year he chased Sunny from the north habitat where he always nests, and we had Sunny on a nest in the south habitat. So I'm a little biased. I kind of like Sunny better, but I know that's why he's Sargent. Here he is with his chick. Rachel got this picture of him. This was from last year. Okay, and then our last bird I want to talk about, I call him Indigo, and he nested last year, and he's a male bird. He was captive bred at Santa Barbara, at the Santa Barbara Zoo. Santa Barbara is able to take eggs that have been abandoned. If they're still fertile, they put them in an incubator and they hatch them out and they care for them until they're ready to be released. They usually keep them not very old, maybe like 10 weeks old, and then they get released. And so this was one of the first ones that was released. And he nested on our beach last year twice. You can kind of see his little purple band there. I do have a little video about him. The cool thing about Indigo is that he's not only a great dad, but he's a great husband. He is the only male bird I've ever seen that relieves his mate at 2 or 3 in the afternoon. I know this doesn't sound like a big deal, but they always get on after dark. And so that's how we were able to get good images of this guy, because we actually saw him letting his mate off the nest in the afternoons. And here they are with their chicks. This is on hatch day. Super cool that this bird has figured out what to do. So unfortunately, I don't think these chicks made it, because Indigo was on a nest like 10 days later, almost like 250 feet away from his original nest. And I didn't get video of the chicks from this, but we know this one hatched. So we've had 3 other zoo birds. 2 of them bred on our beach. And then one, we've just saw it, it just like came through once. So pretty exciting that these birds are figuring it out. So I'm going to wrap up with a pitch, because as you can see, there's a lot of work to do out there. It's a big beach. We do have a volunteer naturalist training coming up. Here we are fixing that back fence, which we do often. Our next workshop is on May 25th. It's a Saturday, and then we have another one on June 29th. They're separate. You pick one. It's about 3 hours of classroom training. We're going to go into more details about the laws, about protecting, how these birds are protected, how they came to be. We talk about more of their life history and talk about how to do outreach. And then we retreat to the beach after lunch and we do some field training. We have some fun activities that we do to give people practice looking at snowy plovers. So the way to sign up for that is to email our volunteer coordinator at volunteer@venturaudubon.org, or go to our website, the Beach Naturalist page. You can sign up at the bottom. And here's our trainers, our very friendly trainers. This was one of our field classes from last year. And this was another one of our field classes from last year. We actually moved in some symbolic fencing that day. And this is work that's already happened this year. So there's always something to do. And it doesn't necessarily have to be walking the beach, talking to people. There's all kinds of tasks we need help with. This is another little job. It's community science. We have an app, Survey 123. And in this case, we have an app where we get our volunteers. They don't have to talk to dogs or dog owners, but just document where they are. And that's something I can give to the police, and it gives me good argument for getting better enforcement. So thank you to everybody who funds us. We have a NICWIC grant from the Nature Conservancy, Coastal Conservancy, a whale-tail grant, and then we got this really awesome community grant from the city of Port Hueneme and the Port of Hueneme that pays for our trail cameras. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Oh, I do have this. This is a story map. I have it on our website. If you go to the speaker page right now, it's right under the Zoom link. You can load this up and you can look at all the videos. I'm probably going to move it to a different location once we get, actually, probably in a couple weeks. I'll probably put it on the shorebird recovery page. Any questions? Let's see. So Ormond Beach, the area that we survey, is the whole thing is about 150 acres. The beach itself is about 1.5 miles long. So now the area, there's the area where the ATVs came in, that's probably about a 30, 40 acre area. Is that what you're asking? Okay. Any other questions? 10%. So every egg that hatches, we know that at least 10% are surviving, which doesn't sound great. It's probably better than 10%, but it's very difficult to follow chicks until fledge. So I can say that it's not any worse than that. But yeah, chicks need all the help they can get. They're pretty fragile little guys that have a lot. They have to do a lot of running and a lot of staying away from dangers. So there's a lot of ways it can go wrong. Yeah.
Explain the metrics, especially pair numbers and goals.
Oh yeah. So the cool thing about Ormond is things are, there's a lot of these challenges that are happening, but it's going up. It's getting much better out there. We actually hit our Fish and Wildlife Service targets for breeding birds last year for the first time ever. And we've been calculating this for like 25 years. The goal for Ormond Beach is 50 breeding snowy plovers. And we hit 51 last year. Normally we're far below that. So we calculate that based on the number of active nests. So that's 2 birds per active nest. And we also add up the number of clutches that we see. So that's 1 bird. So 1, because the male is the only breeding bird for that. Yes.
I have a question. 2 questions. 2 questions. Question 1, have you ever thought of dummy cages to try to fool raven? Lack of nest. Second, thought of trying pure ravens with dummy eggs, bad tasting compound nest.
Okay, so the answer to that is we have already done the first one, thinking that we could outsmart these ravens just by putting dummy cages out. I thought that was a good idea, but it's ridiculous. They're not fooled. They still check every cage, whether or not it has eggs in it. And they win enough that keeps them coming back. As far as the bad tasting compound, there's all kinds of different strategies out in that realm. The problem is we don't have the budget and the staff to do that kind of stuff. Now, Point Magoo does. They have a lot of budget for that, and they do have an active predator manager. And we are trying to figure out ways that we can get them to help us on our side of the fence. And they have things like that and more than you could possibly imagine, ways to deter or change behavior or otherwise make sure ravens aren't bugging nests. So that's a story to be continued. It's a big thing and it's not easy. Any other questions? Okay.
Say thank you, everybody.
All right. Yeah. Thank you, everybody on Zoom. Be sure to go to our the program page. You can look at this presentation and see all the videos on your own. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Good. All right. I'm going to